The last time that the United States was involved in a sporting event in Africa, we got Waka Waka by Shakira out of it. All I'm saying is that if this announcement comes with a new Shakira song that absolutely slaps, I'm not complaining. Welcome everybody to JJ9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jared and I representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about the NFL International Series and plans for the NFL going forward regarding international expansion. If you're watching as of this video getting released, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to play the Green Bay Packers tonight in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, in what will be not just the first ever NFL game to be played in Brazil, but the first ever NFL game to be played in South America. Roger Goodell, as commissioner, has really tried to grow the game internationally, and his strategy is to do what his predecessors did not do when they tried growing the game internationally, and that is to have regular season games be played in other countries besides the United States. Yes, we saw the Mexico game in 2005, but that was a one-off. In terms of yearly things, we've seen London every single year. We've seen Germany now get in on it. Spain's going to get a game in 2025. Now Brazil, that might be a yearly thing. We're going to see on that. But it raises the question, what's the next frontier? Where is the NFL going to go to next? Especially if they go to an 18-game regular season, and especially with a new agreement that every team is going to get the home game at least once in a 4-year stretch. Well, we got some ideas earlier today when Roger Goodell went on Good Morning Football, and no one has brought this up today. No one, I've seen nothing on this so far, but Goodell might have spilled the beans on where the NFL is going to go to next, because during his interview with Good Morning Football, he talked about future plans for the NFL and where they're going to grow the game next, and they brought up a very, very interesting place that I don't think anyone had as the next place on their bingo card, but it seems like it's going to happen if this question and answer is anything to go off of. Now, I would say take a listen. I'm going to play the clip, but because the clip was uploaded by the NFL's YouTube channel, it will get copyright claimed if I show the video. So I'm just going to show still images while they're talking, and I'm going to play the audio for you. So take a listen.
You know, for the millions of fans who are going to be watching this game tonight on Peacock, we've seen it move from Europe to South America now. Are there plans maybe perhaps to take it on another continent, especially with the explosion of African players, in the NFL? Are there any thoughts of maybe playing it on the continent of Africa?
Absolutely. We're doing more and more in Africa on development of players. O.C. Yermaniero has done a fantastic job with that. But we feel like this game is destined to be global.
Now, obviously, that question did not come out of thin air. This was by Good Morning Football. All these questions are pre-vetted, and Roger Goodell knew what was going to be asked. It's not like it came from reporters. It's not like this was a gotcha question. It's not like this was something that Goodell had to think of on his feet. This came from NFL media, which is designed to make the NFL and Commissioner Goodell look good. When Roger Goodell goes on Good Morning Football, it's purely for PR purposes. It's not a gotcha moment. It's not trying to stump him. It's not trying to catch him off guard. It's meant to make Goodell look good. So no one was going to ask that question if Goodell was going to say no. No one was going to ask that question like, hey, we're growing the game. What about Africa? And Goodell's going to be like, no, we're not really thinking about that. We're not really thinking about other places. There's a reason Africa was brought up. There's a clear reason in particular why Africa was brought up. Remember, we saw the NFL do a commercial where they shot a location in Africa for the Super Bowl. We saw that this past year. We saw that some teams now have international territory rights in various African countries. As an example, the Eagles own the territorial rights to Ghana. The Browns own the rights to Nigeria. So based on the NFL asking that question to Roger Goodell, or Good Morning Football asking that question to Roger Goodell, and based on the recent initiatives, it seems like an Africa game is coming sooner rather than later. It seems like there will be an Africa game at some point. Now, obviously, there's a lot of countries in Africa, so let's read between the lines here. What country is it likely going to be? If I had to guess right now, based on all the context clues we've got, what country is it likely to be to host the first ever NFL game internationally in Africa? And it's probably coming sooner rather than later. It's probably coming in the next 5 years. If I had to guess, Nigeria. If I had to guess, the NFL will play a game in Nigeria based on these comments by Roger Goodell sooner rather than later, because the NFL is going all in on Nigeria. Notice what Commissioner Goodell said during the press conference, or during the interview, I should say, that he had with Good Morning Football. He referenced O.C. Yermaniero. OC Manura is doing a very good job expanding the game in Africa. Goodell seems to really like Manura and what he brings to the table in that regard. Manura is from Nigeria. Manura, the great defensive end for the Giants, won some Super Bowls there. He's from Nigeria. So this is an issue near and dear to his heart. You have to figure that Nigeria is the first place on the list as a result of that. On top of that, this past year, the NFL has really gone all in on Nigeria. Not just Africa, but Nigeria in particular is where they're really honing in on. For example, the Cleveland Browns were just given the international rights to Nigeria. No team had international rights to Nigeria before. The Browns now have those rights. And on top of that, the Browns even announced a draft pick from Nigeria, a 5th-round draft pick, and that was shown at the NFL draft in Detroit this past year and shown on TV, depending on what network you were watching on. They showed the NFL going to Nigeria. On top of that, this past summer, they had an entire NFL combine in Nigeria involving 21 prospects, and they hosted a flag football tournament involving local schools. Look at this press release from June that the NFL put out regarding expanding to Nigeria. Look at what Manura said. It truly is an honor to be leading the NFL's efforts across Africa and expanding key programming into Nigeria, a place that is very close to my heart. We've seen the incredible impact the program has had on young athletes' lives to date, and we're looking forward to creating more opportunities for global talent to play the game and grow that impact in the years ahead. Well, there's no better way to grow that impact and grow the game than playing an actual game there, especially with the success that the International Series has had in countries where you have had the games so far. On top of that, Nigeria is really, really growing in terms of NFL talent. The first 95 years of NFL history, there were just 16 players to hail from Nigeria. Just 16 in the first 95 years. Want how many entered the NFL in the last 10 years from Nigeria? 18. There have been more players that have entered the NFL from Nigeria in the last 10 years than in the first 95 years of NFL history combined. And it makes sense to go to Nigeria too, because they have the stadium in place. Look at the stadium they got. Moshood Abiola National Stadium. It holds over 60,000 people, so it's above that 50,000 minimum that the NFL has in place. It's a modern venue. It opened in 2003. It's got suites. It doesn't have a lot of suites, relatively speaking, but it does have suites. I think it's 56 suites, if I'm not mistaken. Average NFL stadium has about 100, 150, so it's not a ton of suites, but they'll find a way to make it work. And it's right in the capital city. And that's big, too, because the capital of Nigeria, Abuja, is absolutely growing. It makes total sense why they're trying to go to Nigeria, and they might go here, because if there's any place that's growing more than any country right now and any capital right now, it's Abuja in Nigeria. The annual population increase is over 7% in the last 20 years. Annual. It's the fastest growing city in Africa, so you might as well get in on the boom. I will show you this graph right here. This was the population of the capital of Nigeria in the year 2000. It's about 800,000 people. The metro population, about 800,000 people. You look at the population now, oh my goodness. You look at the population now, it is over 4 million. And the UN projection said that for the next 10 years, it's going to be over 6 million people. The place is growing like crazy. It makes sense to get in on the boom, especially when there is definite interest in the game in Nigeria compared to other countries in Africa. And on top of that, the time zone probably wouldn't be a huge deal. It's the same time zone that London is on. So you could easily do a Sunday 9:30 in the morning game, no problem. Sell the TV rights to that game, whether it's on NFL Network, or you just create an international package for the early games. You could do that potentially. Either way, timing won't be an issue. Flight shouldn't be an issue. Again, if they can play a game in Sao Paulo, they played games in Japan and Australia before, back in the 90s and 2000s. Really, Australia was 99, but Japan in the 90s and 2000s in preseason. If they can do that, they can do a game in Nigeria, no problem, especially if it's two East Coast teams. As a reminder, the Cleveland Browns have international territory rights in Nigeria. So would it be 2025? No, it's not going to be 2025. I'd be very surprised if it's 2025. They already announced a game in Spain for 25. My guess is they're not going to add any more games than they have already on the docket, especially if Mexico gets back into the fold. But 2027, when the Browns have the 9th home game, because the AFC has the extra home game in odd number years, or especially if it goes to 18 games sooner rather than later if they get out of the CBA before, I think we're going to see a game in Nigeria. Based on the question that Roger Goodell was asked, that was clearly pre-vetted, it was clearly designed to make it that way, that Goodell brought up Africa first, and that it was brought up in the question itself. Africa's coming sooner rather than later. Africa is coming sooner rather than later, and based on OCU Manura's connection with the NFL, and based on what they're trying to do in Nigeria, it's going to be Nigeria. In the next 5 years, based on what Roger Goodell said, it would not be shocking whatsoever if the NFL is playing a game in Nigeria. Now, no one has broken the news yet, but based on reading between the lines with Roger Goodell, it's coming sooner rather than later, folks. So what are your thoughts on the NFL potentially going to Africa, going to Nigeria? What are your thoughts on international games in general? Do you like the move? Do you not like the move? If they're going to go to Africa, what country do you want them to go to? Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa? Where do you want them to go? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And that is going to do it for this episode of JG9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, JaguarGary9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is JaguarGary9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.